All right, exam season is here, and you know what that means? Stress. But don't worry, I've got your back. We're going to do a super fast, super focused run-through of cell biology. Think of this as your ultimate 5-minute revision guide. We're cutting out all the fluff and just hitting the must-know stuff so you can walk into that exam feeling confident. You ready? Let's jump in.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with the building blocks of life, then peek inside a eukaryotic cell. After that, we'll tackle cell transport, the all-important gatekeeper function. Then we'll cover how a cell knows when its time is up through apoptosis. And finally, we'll wrap up with a quick quiz to make sure it all sticks. Let's get to it. All right, first things first, the building blocks of life. Seriously, if you nailed this section, the rest of biology just clicks into place. So let's build that solid foundation.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture. Every single thing your body does, and I mean everything, from dreaming to digesting your lunch, it all boils down to cells. You're mostly made of what we call eukaryotic cells. These are the fancy ones with a proper nucleus holding all your DNA. But you're also a host to billions of simpler prokaryotic cells, like the good bacteria in your gut. They don't have a nucleus. And all these cells work together in this incredible symphony to keep your body in a stable, happy state, a state we call homeostasis.
So what do these cells actually do? Well, you might as well ask, what don't they do? They give us structure and support, they protect us from invaders, and they're how we grow. They transport nutrients, create energy, they're the body's communication network. Oh, and they also handle reproduction by passing on our genes. Yeah, they're basically the ultimate multitaskers.
And then we have the celebrity of the cell world, the stem cell. I want you to think of these as the body's master cells, or like a biological blank canvas. They start out unspecialized, but they have this incredible, almost magical ability to transform into any other kind of cell. Need a new muscle cell, a brain cell, a skin cell, a stem cell can become it. That's why they're so powerful.
Okay, we've got the basics down. Now let's grab our magnifying glass and zoom right in. We're heading inside the eukaryotic cell. Remember, that's our kind of cell. And what makes them so special is that they're not just an empty bag. Oh no, they have a command center, the nucleus, and a whole bunch of other little structures called organelles, each with a very specific job.
So here it is, a typical animal cell. And honestly, doesn't it look like a little city? You've got your power stations, your factories, your transport system. It's all here. Every one of these little structures, these organelles, is crucial. Keep this image in your head, because we're about to meet all the key workers in this city.
All right, you ready for a super fast tour? Let's do it. First up, the cell membrane. That's your bouncer at the door, the gatekeeper. The nucleus? That's the CEO's office, the brain holding all the DNA blueprints. Mitochondria are the power plants cranking out energy 24/7. Ribosomes, they're the construction workers building proteins. The endoplasmic reticulum is the factory floor and highway system. The Golgi apparatus, that's the shipping department, sorting and packaging everything. And finally, lysosomes are the cleanup and recycling crew. Phew, these analogies are gold for exams, by the way.
Okay, quick clarification, because this one trips people up in exams all the time. The word cytoplasm. What is it? It's basically everything inside the cell membrane except for the nucleus. And it's made of two key things, the cytosol, which is the watery, jelly-like fluid everything floats in, and the cytoskeleton. Think of the cytoskeleton as the cell's, well, skeleton. It's the network of fibers that gives the cell its shape and structure.
Okay, so we've seen the city inside the cell. But how does the city get its supplies in and its trash out? That's the million-dollar question, and the answer is cell transport. This is absolutely critical. When it comes to getting things across that cell membrane, there are really only two ways to go. You've got passive transport and active transport. Think of passive transport like coasting downhill on a bike. It's effortless, no energy needed. Molecules just naturally move from where there's a lot of them to where there's fewer. But active transport, that's like pedaling uphill. It takes a ton of energy in the form of a molecule called ATP to force things to go where they don't naturally want to go.
So let's look a little closer at that downhill ride, passive transport. The simplest form is called, well, simple diffusion. This is for tiny molecules like oxygen that can just sneak right through the membrane. But what about bigger stuff, like glucose? It needs a special doorway, a protein channel. We call this facilitated diffusion. It's facilitated because it gets help, but it's still passive because it requires zero energy from the cell.
Now, there's a special kind of diffusion you absolutely have to know for your exam, and that's osmosis. Osmosis is just a fancy word for the diffusion of water. That's it. It's all about how water moves across the cell membrane.
and it is crucial for keeping our cells from shriveling up or, exploding. It's all about water balance.
Okay, back to that uphill battle. Active transport. The cell uses protein pumps to literally grab molecules and shove them across the membrane. But if it needs to move something really big, to export something, it's exocytosis. Think exo for exit. To import something, it's endocytosis. Endo for enter. And endocytosis has two flavors: phagocytosis, which is cell eating for solids, and pinocytosis, which is cell drinking for liquids. The names really help you remember.
Look, here's a pro tip for revision. The best way to remember all these transport types is to connect them to a real-life example. Every breath you take, the oxygen swapping in your lungs, that's simple diffusion. A white blood cell gobbling up a nasty bacterium, that's phagocytosis. Having that real-world anchor makes a huge difference.
Okay, so we've talked about a cell's life, but what about its death? It turns out not all cell death is created equal. There's a messy, chaotic way for a cell to die, and then there's a clean, quiet, programmed way. Let's dig into that.
So, on one hand, you have necrosis. Think of this as accidental death from an injury. The cell swells up, bursts open, and spills its guts everywhere. It's messy and it causes inflammation. But then, there's apoptosis. This is programmed cell death. It's tidy. The cell gets the signal, it quietly breaks itself down into neat little packages, and gets cleaned up without anyone even noticing. No mess, no inflammation. It's essential for getting rid of old or dangerous cells. So, what flips the self-destruct switch for apoptosis? Well, the signal can come from the outside. We call that the extrinsic pathway. Or it can come from inside the cell itself, say because its DNA is damaged. That's the intrinsic pathway. But either way, they both end up activating these executioner enzymes called caspases. Think of them as the cell's demolition crew. They go in and carefully dismantle everything, which is a crucial way our bodies prevent things like cancer.
Wow, okay, that was a lot to cover. So how about we see what's stuck? We're going to do a super quick quiz. Don't sweat it. This is just a great way to lock in what you've just revised. Ready to test your knowledge?
All right, first question. Which one of these is the smallest unit capable of life all by itself? Is it an organ, an organelle, a tissue, a cell, or a nucleus? Got your answer? It's D, the cell. Organelles are parts of a cell, but they can't live on their own. The cell is where life truly begins.
Okay, question 2. This one might be a bit of a challenge. Which two of these are major types of lipid found in the plasma membrane? We have A, cholesterol, B, triglycerides, C, phospholipids, and D, fat-soluble vitamins. Think about that cell membrane, that gatekeeper. The two correct answers are A, cholesterol, and C, phospholipids. They're the key components that give the membrane its unique structure.
All right, final question. What prevents molecules from just leaking through the spaces between cells? Is it A, gap junctions, B, desmosomes, or C, tight junctions? The correct answer is C, tight junctions. They act like a zipper, sealing the space between cells to make sure nothing gets through that shouldn't.
And that is a wrap. We've covered the absolute essentials of cell biology, from the tiniest organelles all the way to how cells die. You just smashed through a ton of revision. Seriously, take a second and let that sink in. You know this stuff. You are ready for this exam. You've got this.
Hey, thanks for spending the last few minutes with me. Now walk into that exam room, be confident, and just show them what you know. You're going to do great. Good luck.